I like your title. Okay, great. So it's my great pleasure again to introduce Thomas Witzel. So Thomas is the Vice President of Radiomics at QBio and was the Director of Human MR Imaging Core at the Martinos Center until this fall. So Thomas was chiefly responsible for the upgrade and update of the 7T scanner. I think that he solved many problems on a daily basis. I think he was sort of an unsung hero of Bay5, really keeping it operating smoothly and efficiently. Also, always increasing the capabilities of the scanner. We're going to be hearing about today is one of his largest acts of heroism. As Larry had mentioned earlier today, this was quite dramatic when Thomas led the effort to bring back the Southern Tesla after the quench. And so we're going to be hearing a little bit more about that today. So thanks, Thomas, for coming. Great to see you.
Okay. So I've been asked to, thank you for having me. I've been asked to sort of share one of the most painful years of my life in about 15 minutes, which I will do. And I hope that I don't share too much of the pain by depriving you of your lunch. So I try to go to this pretty quickly. But before we get to the death and resurrection part, there is a title that says Caring for the Aging Magnet. And we had sort of this period from 2007 to 2017 where we were essentially coasting. We had made a decision to use the system just like any other system, open it to the users. So it was kind of like a bay like everyone else. A lot of people were using it. Of course, this being a 7T and being super API heavy, I was still having grading calls for breakfast. So we had a lot of these changes, but we had learned how to deal with that without having to have Siemens come over every time. And that was only possible due to one man who hasn't been really mentioned yet, that's Gunjan. He's also, I believe, the only service engineer in the Siemens organization that's in charge of 2 7Ts and never received any 7T training, but he's probably the most experienced one in that regard. But anyway, coming to this point around 2017, we kind of knew this magnet isn't going well. The boil-off is really high. We had cold head problems. Nobody would come help us. We lost the helium level meter, so we had no idea how much helium was in the magnet. And we kind of had a lot of discussions about it, and John and I wrote a grant. We wrote a grant saying, oh, we really need a new 7T. This one is going to go within a year. And luckily, the NIH believed us, and they gave it the best score and funded the Terra. And they should have believed us because it was true. Because, the day came on actually July 24th, 2017 at 10:30 a.m., my wife G called me from Bay5 and says, oh, there's suddenly no more signal, which was already a bad omen because the last time she called me about no signal, the 9.4 had quenched. So I went down there and checked the user saying, oh, is the RF amplifier broken or anything like that? But everything seems fine. But sort of the moment I walked into the room, I don't know, I can't really sense the field, but I knew it wasn't there. So, I mean, it was obviously clear that something bad had happened, but it was a dry quench. So it was not anything like what Franz showed. Nobody saw anything, nobody heard anything, the subject didn't notice anything. There wasn't any substantial frosting, nothing. The thing just quietly went, and I wish I had the EPIs here. It basically went from one beautiful TR of EPI to noise within 2 seconds, with like no artifact, nothing, it's just boom. Anyway, so obviously once you see this, we kind of hit this picture from Larry. I mean, it was Gunjan and I took a peek in the back and said, oh crap, there's a little bit of ice already, so the clock is ticking because the vacuum was going soft. We got on the phone, tried to get somebody to come put a turbo pump on the magnet to basically get vacuum back till we can remove the grading core because we don't want to destroy it. And so Agilent basically was the first address to call, and they're kind of very unflattering terms told me that they weren't really interested in helping me with any of this. And they're also gonna not loan me the pump out adapter because you can only have it when you retain the services, but they won't give me the services. So I wound up calling this guy, Dick Marsh, who always had some random spare parts and whatever. So I called him and he was like, well, I don't really have what you need, but I have something similar. Let me go check on my cows tomorrow morning. He has a farm now. And after that, I go to my shop and weld something up. And he came over and got a turbo on, and that's kind of how he got stuck with this with me. Eventually, we did get Tesla to come by, but there was a pre-story to that also. Another person I called was David Rayner. And David Rayner, the first thing on the phone, he said, well, what did it smell like? And it's like, oh, it smelled like nothing. And then he was like, well, then the magnet's probably okay, because if something went wrong, it smells really, really bad. So, but then somebody from Tesla actually came, was Jason Kamish, who actually had a lot of experience. He checked the quench protection circuit, so that was the first time I saw this thing open. And we found out everything was okay, so the magnet should be good to go. But of course, it wouldn't make sense to bring the magnet back without having any kind of helium level, right? Because you have no idea whether you're putting helium in, whether it's full or anything like that. But you must also know it's impossible to replace the helium level. But once it's gone, it's gone. You cannot get it out. You cannot put a new one in. So we were kind of poking around, and this is all we could see. So you basically look from the top of the magnet into a turret, it's about 8-inch diameter, and it's about 1 meter deep. And this is all you see. And we looked around, well, this is the connectors, these are the button fill ports. And then we found this is mysterious hole, right? Dick Marsh said, well, this typical magnets, you probably forgot to put the bolt in or something like that. But we knew there was a hole that we could use. So we set out to devise something. So how can we, when we bring this thing back, to tell whether we have helium in it? So we went like for 3 different paths. So we bought this 5-inch helium level probe and stuck it through this mystery hole. We don't know what's below it, I guess the magnet. So it went in about 3.5 inches. We put an Allen Bradley resistor on the base of it. And then we also tried this sort of Hail Mary attempt of making like a beach chain with multiple Allen Bradley resistors, which we try to dangle over the side of the surface plate. Of course, we can't see anything around the corner. We don't know how big it is. It actually also wound up not working, probably because the surface plate is a lot bigger than we could see, so it never went over the edge. Then we had to rewire the whole thing. Obviously, the turret only has 19 pin connectors, but we have a lot more pins that actually, to begin with, already 30 inside the magnet, but only 19 on the outside. God knows why. So what we did is added some extra adapters to get the cables out. So now it came to the cool down. Still, nobody really wanted to help us. I said, well, how hard can it be? We buy a bunch of cool down and cool it in a magnet. Now, unfortunately, not as simple as that, but you have a 2-stage approach. First, you would pre-cool the magnet with liquid nitrogen. And that's pretty easy and pretty cheap. But then to get from the 80 Kelvin to 4 Kelvin, on this big cold mass takes about 12,000 liters of helium. And that is a problem. So I called a lot of places that deal with helium, and I got everything from 3 minutes of silence to straight out laughing when I asked for 12,000 liters of helium. So it's pretty difficult, but thanks to Jay Ackerman, actually, we found that the Defense Logistics Agency, basically an arm of the Pentagon, controls a lot of helium, and they were able to get it to us. So we set about doing the nitrogen prefill. This is done actually with 2 doers, because at that time we were still thinking we're going to go really fast and get the thing back really soon. We want to get the nitrogen in twice as fast. And that's a lot of Home Depot parts, by the way. Also, and then I learned my first other important lesson. I monitored the temperature with this resistor that's inside the magnet. And guess what? It doesn't go below 90 Kelvin. I said, well, it has to go to 77 Kelvin. What happens? Only then I learned the people at Magnex and also at Oxford apparently shaved the resistors. That means the data sheet basically means absolutely nothing. So the thing was at 77 Kelvin, and that meant I had filled the magnet with 1,000 liters of nitrogen, which now started coming out the top. We tried to get it out. There's a funny other story how MGH basically then decided that nitrogen was a dangerous environmental toxin that we were not allowed to vent to the outside or anything like that. So we had to get, I think Bruce might remember that, several people involved to let us vent nitrogen to the outside atmosphere without getting a fine from the EPA. I'm going to show the video later if anybody wants to see it. No. And well, then we got the helium from the DLA eventually. Because of our door is a bit narrow, we could only get the 250-liter doors. There was 48 of them. But what the DLA didn't tell us up front is there was no pressure builders, no heaters at all on any of these. So that, of course, after a few tanks got a little tiring, which led Jason Stockman and I to devise this little thing. I think we nicknamed it the bomb. So we basically sacrificed one of the first helium doers and got a little metal tube, stuck some resistors in there and a lab power supply, and basically used one of the liquid doers as a gas source for several days with all the safety valves blocked, of course, to get pressure. And then the cool down went pretty well. We made a little science experiment out of it. So we only actually needed initially 6,000 liters to get to 4 Kelvin. Again, data sheet completely off, but 3,700 ohms, so it was correct. So then moving forward, it was February now, we decided, well, let's try whether the magnet actually works. So we ramped it to 0.35 Tesla, parked it parked the switch, closed everything. So everything was good to this point. But the problem was still, nothing is reading. Any of the 3 probes we put in would not read any liquid helium, right? So we had no indication if the magnet full or not. We knew it's cold because it's superconducting and the switch closes, but we didn't know how much is in there and whether it's full. And anybody I called to ask with the ramp, they're like, you want to ramp a magnet without a helium level meter? You're not, I'm not coming, I'm not sacrificing my reputation for this. But basically, what choice do we have? And eventually, what happened is we decided to just go for it. So we had this meeting in Bruce's office with Larry and said, well, we can either just give up and walk away, or, you know, we spent all this money already, we just try. And one of the things was we had a whole bunch of helium left over from the DAA contract, so we just dumped all of it in, and lo and behold, at some point we got a reading. So we just had, I guess, because the superstructure in the magnet is still much warmer, it was boiling off a lot, so we had to put in a lot of extra helium to get it actually full. And then we were like, well, we're here already, and convinced Dick Marsh to ramp it, which was about a 7-day process because we only had a 5-day power supply, a 5-volt power supply, which is not quite enough. Also, we used electro welding cables from the hardware store, and it had to be about 30 feet away with the power supply from this magnet because it's not actively shielded. So at close to 200 amps, you lose about 3 volts on the cable already. That means in the end, we were like ramping with something like 1.9 volt at the magnet, which translates to something like 4 hours per ampere or something. So yeah, but we made it on August 8, 2018. At about 9:30 p.m. We got back to field. And because Gunjan and the people were already well trained, actually it didn't take very long to put the whole system back together and make an image soon after. So yeah, so I just want to also do a shout out to Dick Marsh. I would have never done it without him. He was sort of like, he's a very humble being. He was actually the first Oxford service engineer in the United States. And so he trained with Oxford very early on. And he does a lot of vertical bore magnet. And he would never go near this one, even when I asked him before it quenched, because he was scared of it. And there was always kind of debate. He's like, no, I'm not touching that. That's too dangerous. I'm not touching it. I'm not touching it. And I would always go like, oh, this one more thing. Help me one more time. He would like kind of ease him along. And now he's actually taking care of the system on a daily basis. So when you see him around the center, say hello. And he's helping. Yeah. And then also, I have to thank in this recovery all the students that helped with this. I mean, filling helium day and night was not easy, especially when you have like in the morning, like at 5 in the morning, graduate student call with the runaway doer. That was fun. So we had, yeah, but thank you everyone for this.